Alright, in this assignment I'm going to show you how to make a tri-fold brochure, something that looks very similar to this one here. And so tri-fold just means that there's three panels. There's actually two folds, but there's three panels when you make the brochure. Alright, we're going to be using Adobe InDesign because it's best to use that for a print document. We're going to go File, New, Document. And I want my brochure to be 5 by 5 inches when it's folded. So that means I need the width. The piece of paper is actually going to be 15 because 5 times 3 is 15. We want the height to be 5 inches. And then there's going to be 2 pages because it's front and back. Make sure that facing pages is unchecked. And I want this to have 3 columns in it. I don't want to have a gutter, so 3 columns, 0 gutter. I want the margins to be 0.25, well, let's make it 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. And since I have this locked here, I can just click in there and it will make all of them 0.125. And my bleed, I want 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch, and there, and we can leave the slug like that. And say create. Alright, so you can see now we have this document where I have 3 panels and I didn't have facing pages, so I have my front and my inside on separate pages here. So we're going to put the front of the brochure right there. The back of the brochure goes here. This would be the inside flap that you would see when you first open it. And then when you open the brochure, you'll see these 3 panels here. All right, the first thing I want to go over with you a little bit is about what these markings are on the page. What exactly is bleed and why do you need it? So if I wanted my brochure to have like a white border around it, so like let's say I want to have this red box or something that goes across the top. Let me go and fill that with red. If I wanted a red box that goes off the edge of the page, that's called bleed, I can't leave it just like this because when paper is being trimmed at the printer, it moves around sometimes. So if I would leave this red box right on the edge, like where I want it, it might end up doing this when the paper moves around and it'll leave a little bit of a white space. So you need to put extra image so that the printing machine can cut that without leaving a white edge. It's just like a little extra space for them. So what you do is you pull anything out that you want to not get, that you want to get cut off your page. It's called bleed. All right, if you press W on your keyboard, you can see what it looks like. So you can see that you don't actually see that image area, but it is there for printing. All right, so that is called bleed. And then this inside line right here that I have, that is called a margin. And that means I don't want any text to go over that edge or it might get cut off. Because, like, let's say we type something here, company name. What you want to do is keep your text inside the margin, because if you have it past the margin, when the printer is, let me do that W, when you're printing this, if you have it too close to the edge of the paper, and once again, if the paper is moving around with the printer, it could get cut off and you could end up doing something like that. So the margin is just there as a safe zone. It should always be at least 1/8 of an inch at minimum. So never put anything closer than 1/8 of an inch from the edge of where it's going to get cut. All right, so now you see, you know what bleed is and you know what margins are, and then you have these lines here, which are, that's where it's going to be folded right there. Those are our columns. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do on this brochure project is to create a logo. So I had one in mind. I'm going to kind of recreate here. So I'm going to have the screenshot of this logo here. And we're going to kind of make one that's similar to that one using the pen tool. All right, so I have my screenshot in here, and I'm just going to trace this. So I'm going to go over and get the pen tool and just draw these mountain shapes here. going to be a pretty basic logo. All right, then come back to my other point here. So if you know how to use Illustrator, you should be able to do this. So when I'm connecting this last point here, I'm dragging a handle. So before I let go of the mouse, I just drag this so it makes kind of a curve. All right, and then we can get the selection tool, and I'm going to make this black for now. All right, and then I'm going to draw the sky. I'm not going to have all those colors in it like that. I'm just going to make mine more of a flat color. So I'm going to get the pen tool again and come around and leave a little space between the mountains and the sun here. All right, now once again, when I'm doing the curve, it's going to be a little trickier. I'm going to come up around to this point here and drag my handle out so that I make a curve and come back around here. The key is kind of to make it in thirds and just have a curve going every third, and then you'll end up it coming out perfect at the end. So you can see this is 1/3, this is 1/3, and that's 1/3. So that's an easier way to do a curve. All right, and then I'm going to have that one filled in with red, and then we're going to delete that screenshot. All right, and that's going to be our logo. I'm not done with it though. I also want to put the name of our company is Adventure Travel. So I want my word adventure to go on a curve. So I'm going to show you how to use this type on a path tool. But first I'm going to draw a curve. I'm going to come out here like near just off the corner of that, whoops, just off the corner of this mountain here. And I'm going to draw this line, and then I'm going to come back over to that side and then drag it so that I have this line that's kind of about the same angle as those mountains. All right, and then get my selection tool. I'm going to give it a stroke so you can actually see it. And I'm going to move it down a little bit. And what I want is the word adventure to go along that curve. So I'm going to get my type on a path tool, and I'm going to click in the middle of this to activate it. So you can see the cursor is blinking. I'm going to use all caps and type the word adventure. Now I'm going to do Control A to select all of it, and I'm going to make the font bigger like this, and I want it to be centered, and then obviously I want to flip it so it's the other way. So I can go type on a path options, and I can say flip, and now I have that on the top. And now I want to change the tracking so that the word adventure is spaced out. So I'm going to go over here. You see that's the tracking, and just bump this up to be a little bit more spaced out. And I'm going to pick a different font. I think I'll use this font here. All right. So I want to get rid of that line underneath there, so I can go to this stroke and say none. All right, so now I have the word adventure, and it kind of follows the bottom of those mountains. And then I'm just going to put the word travel in a straight font right below it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab this text box over here that said company name, and I'm going to just put the word travel. And I want to use, let's see, which font. I think I'll use this font right here. Actually, I'm going to change the adventure to that font too. There we go. And I'm going to make travel centered, and we're going to make it bigger. So I'm going to go over here to properties, make it bigger, increase the leading or the tracking on that. And I'll put it under the word travel. I mean under the word adventure. I think I'll make it red too. So the next thing I'm going to do in my logo is I'm going to make the letter A inside this mountain. I think it would look good. So I'm going to get the pen tool again, and I'm just going to draw some lines that kind of follow the shape of the mountain so that I make a letter A. It's not too difficult of a letter to draw. And then I'm going to go up here and fill that with white. Then I'm going to get the direct selection tool and just try to straighten some of the things out. I'm going to click on that point and bring it up closer to the top. Maybe make this so that it looks more uniform on the sides. And pull these in. So it's very similar to Illustrator in that you can draw these vector things in them too. All right, and then I'm going to get the pen tool again and just draw the inside of my A. And I'm going to fill that with black. And once again, I'm going to get the direct selection tool and just click on these points to move them around so that it's more centered, looks better. You can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to adjust stuff. All right, that looks good enough. Maybe fix this a little. All right, and then the other thing I want to do, since I have this as a font here, if someone else were to open this logo up, it wouldn't look the same if they don't have this font, and this is an unusual font. So what I'm going to do is called Create Outlines, and that way it makes it into like a vector piece of art instead of an actual font. So I'm going to use my text tool to select that font and then go to Type, Create Outlines. I'm going to do the same thing here, Type, Create Outlines. I'm going to take my logo and select all and go to Edit or Object, Group again. Now it's all one group. And reduce the size of it. So I'm up here where it says 100%, I'm making it smaller. Now I'm going to move it over to the front page and put it in the center of my front panel. Notice how when I'm dragging this around, if I see that little green line pop up, it means it's centered. Where did it go? There it is. So you see that guide come on. That means I'm in the center of that panel. So I'm going to leave my logo there. All right, and then I have some pictures gathered for you for this assignment. You're going to put a big picture on the front of this. So I'm going to do, you can either just copy and paste the picture from the internet or Photoshop, or you can go to File and choose Place. Let's Control D. And I'm going to find this folder where I have this and choose one of the pictures I have picked out. All right, and I want to pull that in where it lines up with the bleed line, and then I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And then I'm actually going to pull this up so that it's like this, so I have this white space. I'm going to go ahead and make my logo a little bit smaller. And center it again down at the bottom. All right, so I have this red box over here, and I wanted to kind of make it so I can still see the photo that's below it. I'm going to drag this to fit the whole length of the photo and actually go past it just a little bit, so it'll be a little bit of a red line. So you know how in Photoshop you can change the blending options in the layers palette? You can also do that in InDesign by going up to Window and then choose Effects, and then you can do the same thing. So if I want to put it on Multiply, which I do, I'm going to leave mine on Multiply. That way it can go through the picture in an effect instead of just looking plain like it was. All right, now at any time if I press W on my keyboard, it'll show me it without all the guidelines and the bleed, so I can kind of see how things are looking. All right, now I'm going to place picture. This is the front panel, so I'm going to end up putting a phone number or a slogan or something on here. And then on this side, this right here is the back of the brochure. Put it in an actual photo box. I can draw the box like this, and then I can do Control D, which is place. File, place, Control D. I'm going to go back and pick that picture of the map, and it placed it right inside that box. All right, now let's say I want this to fit the box. If I go over here to Properties, I can go where this frame fitting is, and I can choose, click this button, it'll automatically make it fit inside that box. So I had an idea for putting a picture inside like this shape of these mountains. So I'm going to make a picture box using that. So I'm going to click on this logo and Control C, Control V to make a copy of it. And I'm going to make it bigger. Whoops. Let me delete all the elements first. Let's ungroup it. So go to Object, Ungroup. I need to do it twice because I grouped it twice. Now I can see everything as a separate piece. So I'm going to select on everything and delete it except for the mountain range. Alright, so now that I have this graphic, I can hold my Shift key and drag on the corner until I get it to be pretty big. And I'm going to actually center it in the back of the brochure and have part of it coming on the inside panel and on the front. So I see it gives me that green line when it's centered. Alright, that looks pretty good there. So now I want to put a picture inside of that. So if I select it with my selection tool and then go to Place, File, Place, or Control D, and find a picture that I want to place in there. That's the one I want to use. Alright, so you can see it put the picture inside of there. Now, to make it fit in the window, I can either get the direct selection tool and click on it and move it around and resize it, or I can go over here to frame fitting and just click on this first one, fill frame proportionally. Then it automatically makes it fit to the size. Alright, I'm going to still click on it and move it up a tad. Maybe I'll make it a tiny bit bigger so that I get him more in the middle of the mountain. Make it a little bigger. Alright, that looks pretty good. And I want to put like an outer glow on it. So in Photoshop, you know how to do that with the effects. This is the same way. So let's get your selection tool, click on that, and then it's up here, FX, just like in Photoshop. You can click on that and give it an outer glow. I'm going to make it white. I want it to be a little bit darker. Let's make it 100%, and then I'm going to make the size a little bit bigger. Let me put it on normal, I think. Try that. Alright, and then say OK. Alright, so the next thing that I want to do for our brochure is I want to take this logo, I'm going to do a couple different things with it. I'm going to put it bigger and up here, and I'm going to put it in a circle and put it on the back. So let's start off with that one. So I'm going to go over here to the ellipse tool, and I'm going to hold the Shift key and drag a circle. Let's make it about that big, and I'm going to fill it with white. And then I'm going to drag it until I get the guide telling me it's centered. So I see that pink line. I know it's centered. I'm going to drop it right there. Make it a little bit lower just so it looks like this guy is jumping over it. And then I'm going to put a copy of the logo in that circle. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V. I have a copy of it and put it right there. Alright, so I like the way that looks. Alright, and so I want to take this logo here and I want to put it up in this area and make it bigger. But first I want to make the word travel white because you wouldn't be able to see it otherwise. So I'm going to click on this. Remember, we grouped it together to be one thing. So we need to go back to Object, Ungroup, or Control Shift G. And I need to do it twice because I did group it twice. You have to ungroup it as many times as you grouped it. And then click on the word travel, and we're going to make it white. Get our selection tool, and now I want to regroup everything again. So I'm going to drag a selection box so that I have everything, and then go to Object, Group, move it up here to the top, and let's make it bigger. I think something around that big will look good. Alright, now I'm going to take, I'm going to put a photo under this little area that we have right here. So I'm going to press W so I can see where my folds are on my document. And I'm going to draw a photo box that fits right below that red line and it's going to bleed off the end of the page and end right where that fold is. Alright, I'm going to do Control D and get my photo. I'm going to select it and choose frame fitting so that it fits in. And I want to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back because I want it to be behind that little graphic photo box that we have. Send to Back. Alright, and then I'm going to get the Direct Selection tool and just play around with the positioning. I think I'll put it like that. So I want to add like a website here on the front, and then I'm going to add like a slogan on this inside fold. So let's start off with just adding the website. I'm going to drag a text box and just write www.adventuretravel.com. And let me use just kind of a plain font. Alright. And I'm not sure where I'm going to put it. I think I'll just leave it somewhere right there where it's still in the white area where you can see it. I might move that around because I'm just designing this as I go, but something like that. Alright, and then I want to put a slogan over here on this panel here. I had a slogan. Let me get my text tool and just drag a text box and write. I'm going to use all caps. Alright, and all I want to have on this inside panel is the text. So I'm going to just make it really big and leave a lot of white space. Make it as big as I can to fit in that box. And let's center it. Let's make this text red here. And I think I'll use a different font. Maybe we'll go back to the font that we've been using. And then I need to make this a little smaller. So I'm going to select the word adventure and just reduce it a little bit. Actually, I see a couple little things I want to do on here before we move to the inside. I want to move this down a little bit so that you can see my website a little bit better. Alright, I think that looks good. Now that's a little bit more readable. And then I also, instead of leaving all this white, I think I want to go ahead and extend this red box that we have going back here all the way across the whole thing. So I'm going to click on that and go up to the side of it and drag it all the way over here, making sure I do a bleed so it goes off to the edge. I want to make the words in here white so that you can see them better. Alright, I'm liking the way that looks better. I'm going to move this up. And then the last thing I want to do, instead of leaving this white under here, I'm going to take this picture here and I want it to be over here on this side too. So I am going to select it, copy, paste, and then I'm going to flip it so it's going the other way. So if you go up here to the top in your toolbar at the top, and I want to flip it, and I'm going to put it down the same spot. Let's make it line up just like this one is. All the way across. I'm going to go Object, Arrange, Send to Back. Actually pull it up just a tad. And then the last thing I'm going to do to balance it out, this has this red line here. I'm going to put a black line going under this one. So I'm going to make sure it goes all the way to the bleed and fill it with black and go Object, Arrange, Send to Back. There. I think I like the way that looks a lot better. Alright, so I am done with the front of this brochure. I have my front cover, my back panel, and the inside panel, and then next I'll show you what to do for the inside.